think recording is started and I'm sharing my class. Okay, I think my screen is visible.
हाँ सर
स्क्रीन
विजिबल है।
ओके ओके फाइन. सो लास्ट क्लासेस में या शायद आप लोग टीसीएस के उसमें थोड़े बिजी थे. हम लोग सिस्टम डिज़ाइन पर बात कर रहे थे. इन द सिस्टम डिज़ाइन वी आर फोकसिंग ऑन आवर हाई लेवल स्ट्रेटेजी वेल वी आर फोकसिंग ऑन दिस system architecture that is used for solving your problem and how to build your solution. So in this chapter we would identify, or we can say that this system design is your first design stage and we are having lots of iterations available. So our focus is on now focus is shifted to how to be done anything instead of while during analysis we are focusing on what is to be done now, and now we are focus on how it is to be done now. So in that case we are focusing on this system design. We have to make certain decisions how your system design works. So we had covered how to estimate the performance of our system, how to make a reuse plan. Then we had gone for this organizing our system into a subsystem. Then we had covered this identifying our concurrency and inherent concurrency in your system. Then we had allocated our system to our hardware, and then we had identified different data stores. So we are having file systems, we are having database management system, and we had gone our different scenarios where to store our data in file system and when we should move to our mm, database system. Then we had covered this how to handle our global resources. So we had covered this guardian objects and the logs, and we had identified that these logs are much more comfortable and simpler, because in your guardian objects require some uh, accesses and access control paradigm is used, and so you need some context switching uh, cost associated with your Gaussian objects and so on. Now we had the next step for identifying or creating a system design is that we should go for choosing our software control strategy. So we are having some let's say when we are in this analysis model. So this your this analysis model shows interaction between your particular events and interaction between events, or we can say that interaction between your objects. So we had identified that hardwares are too much faster, but when we like to move on your let's say we are providing some solution related to a software. So we are having different ways for implementing this control in our software. So your subsystem needs same type of implementation in all those levels. So we have to choose a single control style that is based for all these subsystems. So we are in two different kinds of control flows in our software system. First is external flow, and then we are in internal flow. When we are considering external flow, so this external flow concerns with a flow of externally visible events among the objects in your systems. So we are having three kinds of control system. First is the procedural driven sequential, then we are having event driven sequential, and then we are having a concurrent control system. So uh, in addition to that, we are having some internal control, uh, internal control. So this internal control refers to the flow of control within your process. So it exists only in the implementation level, and therefore it is neither inherently concurrent or not, or we cannot say that this is an concurrent or it is sequential, but it flows in between your uh, processes. So unlike your external events, your internal in your internal control, your internal transfers controls such like procedure calls or your inter-task calls. So this internet transfer of control are usually under the direction of your particular program, and it can be structured as per their program convenience. So we are having three kinds of your control flow in the internal control. First is procedure call. Second way is a concurrent intertask, and we are having concurrent intertask calls. So like this quasi concurrent intertask calls are such like you are having coroutines, or you are having some lightweight processes, or and these are usually programming conveniences that uh, which what I can say that which focuses on your multiple address space, or let's say your call stacks, and your call stack exists only in a single thread of control, and that can be active only but in a time. So we will start, let's say, with your procedure driven control, and then we'll cover all these kinds of control flow. So we'll start our choosing your software control strategy with your procedure driven control. So in this procedure driven sequential system, your control particularly resides in your program code. So the procedure requests your external output, external input, and then wait for it. When your input arrives, then your control resumes, and your procedure control resumes within your procedure call. So the location of your program counter and your stake of the procedure calls, and your local variables define your system states. So this is very important for identifying the system state in the second state, in the second or the third or the fourth iteration of your state model. So the major advantage for this procedure driven control is that it is easy to implement with your conventional language, and the disadvantage associated with is that it requires the concurrency inherent in objects that to be mapped into a sequential flow of controls. So the designer must convert your event into an operation between your objects. So a typical operation, let's say, corresponds to a pair of events. So we are having, let's say, pair of events, like we are having output events that performs output, and it requests input, and your input event that delivers new values to your system. So when we are considering these object oriented languages like let's say C, C++ or Java, this may be procedural language. Like when we are let's say when we are going for this C++, we can implement their sequential flow as an procedure programming as well, in addition to your object oriented and object oriented paradigm. In addition, like we can define our classes in Python, but you can, without classes, you can uh, create your software in Python by doing this procedural programming languages. Uh, but what about this message passing between your procedures? So when a message is just a procedure call within your statements, so the major drawback of this conventional object-oriented language is that they usually fail to support a concurrency inherently in your objects. So some concurrent object-oriented language that have to be designed, but they are not being widely used. So this might be an uh, open research issue that we should go for this concurrent object-oriented languages, so that they can control, they can make this procedural driven control flow within your systems. Now in addition to that procedure driven control, we are having some event driven control flows. So in an event driven sequential system, your control resides within your dispatcher or the monitor uh, uh, that monitors your operating system or your language or your subsystem that provides. So usually your developers attach your application procedures to like a particular event, and then the dispatcher calls your procedures, and when your corresponding event occurs, let's say this might be a callback. So when your procedure calls uh, when your procedure calls to your a particular dispatcher, so your dispatcher sends output or it enables your input, and it does not wait for any inline statements. So all procedure return controls to your dispatcher rather than retaining their control flow until your input arrives. So consequently, we can say that the your program counter and your state cannot preserve particular states. So procedure that are using your global variables to your maintain your state, or your dispatcher that maintains your uh, local state of your software. So we have to consider all these procedures that coincides or that work as an event driven system. So when we are considering this event driven systems, your event driven control is more difficult to implement within your standard languages then. But when we are considering with this as an uh, for your procedural language, then it requires some extra effort to implement them. Then your event-driven system permits more flexible control than your procedural-driven system. So for an event-driven system, you can simulate your cooperating process within your single multi-threaded task, or we can say that an errant procedure can block your entire application. So we must be careful for implementing them. For, let's say, event-driven user interface systems are particularly useful for making this event-driven system. So, so when we are using this event-driven system for your external control and preference of your procedural-driven system, because when we are mapping this event to your program constructs, it is simpler and it is more powerful than your procedure-driven systems. So the next control strategy is that we are going for this concurrent control. So we had covered this procedure driven, and then we are considering this concurrent control. Then we are sorry, event driven. Then we are considering this concurrent control. So in particular concurrent control, concurrent system, your control reside with concurrently in several independent objects, and this current and this controls or these objects are usually considered as a separate task. So for such system, when we are implementing this concurrent system, so such system implements your events directly as an one-way message, not like an object-oriented language, but it it is considered as an one-way message between your particular objects. So a task that can wait for your input, but other tasks can continue for your execution. So your operating system must resolve your scheduling conflicts among your task and uh, your queuing mechanism. So if we are having multiple CPUs, then we can have different tasks and that can actually uh, execute concurrently. So this is again a way that we can go for a concurrent control system. The another way is that we can go for internal control system. So during our design phases, your developer expands your operation on your particular objects into the lower level of operation on the same objects or another object. So internal object interactions are usually similar to an external object interaction, because we can use the same level of implementation mechanism for all these cases. So if there is an important difference between your external interaction, so this your external interaction inherently involves in waiting for your events, because your objects are independent and cannot force other objects to respond. Let's say your objects are generate your internal operation as a part of your implementation algorithm. So their forms of the their form of the form of response is just an predictable. So we can think about internal operation as an procedure call, or we can, this is an important thing, that we can consider this internal control as an procedure calls in which your caller issues and requests and wait for the responses. So there are many algorithms for our parallel processing, but many computation are well represented as in a sequential, and it can easily be folded in a single thread of control. So when we are going for internal control system, we can say that we are going from just a simple procedure call for our systems. Then the another thing is that we are going from some another or other paradigm. So we can assume that we are interested in procedural programming, but we can say that other paradigms are usually possible, such as we are in some rule-based system, we are in some logic programming system, and other forms of the non-procedural programming. Like we can have some rule-based system, like for your artificial intelligence. Then let's say you are creating different types of rules, like for decision trees, or like for your goal state planning. So we are having different types of paradigm, and that solely depends your choice of choosing your control strategies depends on your particular application domain. So when you are going for, let's say, artificial intelligence, then you must go for rule based system. Let's say you are creating a chatbot, so you should create lots of the rules, and you have to choose which rule is to be implemented for particular seed word or some seed words right from your user. So we can have lots of system, like a rule-based system, logic programming system, or other forms of non-procedural programming system. So these constitute another control in which have some explicit control, and it is being replaced by your declarative specification, which your implicit evolution rules. So let's say consider an example of your ATM system. So the ATM is just an event-driven control, because we are inserting a card and some events happen, and then you type your password or credential into your system. So this is event-driven control system is appropriate paradigm for your ATM system. Then if you are considering, let's say, we are creating an system software, then internal control system is very much appropriate for creating your system software, because you are basically works on your procedure calls. And in addition to that, what we can do is that we are in concurrent flow. We can add concurrent flow in our system, because let's say if you are working on your operating system, so you have to execute multiple procedures or multiple tasks at a time. So we can go for this concurrent system. Then if you are considering, let's say, a procedural driven control system, where your control reside within your program, so the appropriate type of systems are like uh, algorithmic way, when you are going for implementing some algorithms. So a procedural driven control system is very good for your algorithmic type of system. Uh, let's say you are considering for the machine learning application. So the procedural driven, let's say you are calculating let's say you are training your samples, and then you are going for multiple cross validation, and then you are creating then you are going for underfitting, overfitting, avoiding overfitting and the underfitting, and then you will calculate accuracy, and then again you are trying to add new instances in your data, and again you are resampling it. So this procedural driven programming is very good for your algorithm based system. Like an example is a machine learning application, or we can say that we are in a deep learning system. Then the next decision is your handling your boundary conditions. So we are having three types of boundary conditions, or we can say that we have to address these three kinds of issues in handling our boundary conditions. So first is like in initialization. So your system must proceed right from your initial state to your sustainable steady state, and your system must initialize your constant data, your parameters, your global variables, your task, your Gaussian objects, and possibly the class hierarchy itself. So during the initialization, only a subset of functionality of your system is usually available. So initializing a system, it contains a concurrent tasks that are more difficult, because your independent objects must get either very far from your system, or it may be behind from another system. But yeah, when you are considering these dependent objects or concurrent tasks, so you have to manage the initialization of all those conditions. Then we are in termination. So this termination is usually simpler than initialization, because the many internal objects can simply, you have to abandon all these objects. So your task must release any external resources that is being uh, logged by your particular system, or that is reserved by your particular task. So when we are considering this concurrent system, your one task must notify other task that it has been completed, and or it is going to terminate, so that the another task can continue to hold all those resources. Then the third condition for handling our boundary condition, or third issues related to your boundary condition, is that uh, failure. So failure is just an unplanned termination of your system. A failure can arise right from your users errors, or just an exhaustion of your system resources, or any external breakdowns. So when we are designing a system, so your good design plans this orderly failures. So failure can also be arise, right, from your bugs in your system, on let's say we can consider as an impossible inconsistencies in our system. So when we are creating a perfect design, so in your perfect design, such as like a errors would never be happen, but the good designer plans your graceful exits of your system. Let's say we are going for this uh, exception handling systems. So this might be a graceful exit of your system, or we can have some fatal bugs. So when we are considering this failure or designing a system, so we must be prepared for this failure system, and we have to design our system, that system, how to deal with our uh, failures. So these failures are just like an unplanned termination of our system. And the next design issues associated with us is settling the trade-off priorities. So your system designer must set the priorities that will be used to guide your trade-offs for the rest of your system design. So these priorities are uh, these priorities reconcile desirable but your incomplete goals. For an example, let's say a system can often be made faster by using an extra memory, but it may increase the power consumption of your system, and it may cost more. So we have to find what are the trade-off priorities. Either we have to go for the fast computation, or we have to cover this power consumption and the cost associated with this. So a design trade-off involve not only your software itself, but also the process that is going to develop it. So sometimes it is necessary to sacrifice your complete functionality to get a piece of your software into use that is being used as an earlier. So sometimes the problem statement specifies their priority, but often cases the burden falls on the designer to reconcile the incompatible desires of your client and decide how to make the trade-off. Let's say uh, uh, in our problem specification, uh, 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 the client says that the computation time for calculating all those things are like as an SVP case. When I like to find uh, uh, I like to find the result of a particular student. So it may use that when I'm typing some, let's say 1701, so it autofills all those roll number right from your system. So one solution is that either the user can type the whole roll number, and then we'll go in our databases, and then we'll show the result. The another way is to that it autofills the roll number of our system. So when we are going to autofill this system, then we requires uh, high computation. But the extra advantage associated with the autofill is that we don't have to remember the roll number of students. Like I'm just going for a roll number for let's say Gaurav Sharma, so I can go for Gaurav Sharma and I just initialize 1710 and BT MB something like, and the appropriate name, the roll number and the appropriate name autofills in my, let's say, text box. So this might be a very good thing. So when we are going for implementation of such thing, it requires high computation cost, and we need some extra intelligence for doing this. So our system designer must determine the relative importance of the various criteria as a guide to make your design trade-offs. So this is a trade-off. Either we can go for let's say autofill system, or we can go for manual search. So we have to make a trade-off. So for your designing, so your system designer does not make all the trade-off, but yeah, it established the priorities for making them. For an example, let's say the first video game ran on the processor with your limited memory. So for that particular video game, conserving memory is more has highest priority, then followed by your faster execution. So let's say another example, let's say we are having some NumPy or the Panda packages for your Python. So let's say again consider this an mathematical subroutine packages are the library that runs on the wide range of your machine. So uh, we need an well conditional numerical behavior that is being much crucial for those packages, as well as we need some portability and the understandability associated with them. So we cannot sacrifice that. We need higher computation power. Let's say again we are going uh, for this convolution deep neural network, so we need this matrix multiplication and the convolution function. So we should, as a human, we can go for, let's say, going for the inverse of matrix, let's say for the 5 cross 5 or 6 cross 6. So in addition to that, if we are going from the, let's say, matrix of 10,000 cross 10,000, so we our focus should be on let's say high computation instead of saving our money. So these are some designer traits of, and this designer traits of affect your entire character of your system. Either we can go for the faster solution, or we can go for some cost effective solution. So the success and the failure of your final product may depend on how, what goals are that is to be chosen. Even worse, we can say that if no system wide priorities are being established, then the various parts of system may optimize their sub optimization goal, and it may result in your wasting of your resources. Even when we are going for this small level of projects, the programmers usually forget the real goals and becomes very obsessed with your efficiency when it is really unimportant. That, let's say, uh, uh, हमारे पास कुछ एम टेक के वाइवास हो रहे थे, तो स्टूडेंट अगेन गोइंग फॉर, लेट्स से सर मेरा कंप्यूटेशन इतना फास्ट था, दे आर फोकसिंग ऑन द इंफॉर्मेशन सिक्योरिटी, सॉरी, cyber security, and they are saying that, sir, we are developing an application that trains very fast our data, and it takes very much less time. So the question arises at that particular time, what is the trade-off between your training time and the uh, security level? So they are going for lesser time, while their trade-off is on your security level. So we have to find out what is the actual goal of our system. So actual goal is that we have to develop an application that is more secure rather than it is fast. So when we are setting this trade-off priorities, is just it is at best of the spec. So we cannot expect the numerical accuracy, like say we are expecting the 50% speed of 50% on memory, 35%, and so on. So priorities are rarely absolute. For example, let's say we are are trading for the memory for an speed. It does not mean that we are increasing in speed, but uh, we should give at least the accurate system for our system, accurate, uh, a more accurate system while going for the speed. So this is different trade-offs between your systems. So this is for today's class, and we need an at least one lecture to complete, at most one lecture to complete our fourth unit. So this is all for today's class. If you are having any question, then you can ask me.